The era of pay-to-win Roblox games might finally be over. You see, for the past year or so, Big Studios has been the face of everything wrong with the platform. They were the ones buying up games just to fill them with greedy microtransactions, but now, they've just completely disappeared. Their website that once used to be filled with the most popular Roblox games is now empty, not a single game left. They bought Fisch, owned some part of Steal a Brainrot, Grow a Garden, even a Dusty Trip and Blade Ball, so they basically took over the entire platform for a while. Well, why is them vanishing such a big deal? Because you have to realize how huge Big Studios actually was. They weren't like some small dev team, they were basically running the entire platform. Their plan was simple: show up with cash enough to buy a big percent of popular games, and from there they'd just take over. In the real world, that's just business, but on Roblox, it changed everything. When they weren't as big, they focused on games where the developers couldn't manage the growth anymore. But that changed when they went after a Dusty Trip. It was a game that used to be a real passion project, but Big just filled it with junk and ruined the quality. Then they moved on to games like Blade Ball, which actually had a massive following that cared about the game. They even picked up Baddies, another one that started out as a personal project. But after they got involved, both of those games basically died out because of the changes they made. The game that really brought in all their money was Fisch, which most of you probably know. It actually helped grow the player base for the whole platform. A solo dev named Wune created it to be a chill experience, and it only blew up because it didn't force you to spend money to progress. It was honestly a game I really enjoyed. What made it stand out was how different it was from everything else. At the time, Roblox was full of fast-paced games like Blox Fruits, which was basically running the platform with hundreds of thousands of active players, and Fisch reaching the #1 spot proved that a small independent developer could actually compete at the top. But the situation completely changed once Big Studios got involved. Big bought the game for a price that was never made public, but like I've mentioned in my previous videos, the owner of Fisch actually went out and bought a McLaren right after the deal. If he could afford that, the real amount they paid him was probably way more than anyone realizes. But yeah, the news basically came out of nowhere, and it left the community pretty worried. People were honestly scared that their favorite relaxing game was going to be ruined, mostly because Big already had such a bad reputation. And the players were right, Big didn't waste any time changing the game. The chill way it used to work was gone almost overnight, and suddenly, everything was about how much Robux you could spend. They started pushing these crazy expensive packs, and once they added that 64x LUT Game Pass, it wasn't even a fishing game anymore, it was just a casino. The game basically died after that. Everyone was so angry that they just stopped playing. You might have even seen that huge video by Holy Grail 75, it got millions of views because it exposed exactly how greedy this company actually is. But the truth is, Big didn't lose any sleep over it. They already got what they wanted, made their cash, and were already looking for their next target. They went out and bought a huge chunk of Grow a Garden, somewhere between 20 to 30% of it, then they grabbed Steal a Brainrot, taking another game with millions of players and turning it into their next target. They're just hunting for popular games so they can take them over and milk them for every cent. Grow a Garden and Steal a Brainrot weren't just some random indie projects, these were literally the most popular games on the whole front page. Heading into the start of 2025, it felt like Big was everywhere. You couldn't even scroll through the charts without seeing their name on half of what was there. They were just sitting back and pocketing insane amounts of cash every single day while every other developer was struggling to even get a click. But honestly, the reason everyone hated Big wasn't just because they were making bank. It was because they were basically stripping the soul out of the platform. Roblox was always that one spot where some random kid could code a game in his bedroom and actually watch it hit the front page. It was supposed to be about weird and creative ideas and just hanging out with your friends. But Big didn't care about any of that, they just wanted to turn every game they touched into a literal gambling simulator. It got to the point where a ton of YouTubers were making videos begging Roblox to just ban Big. The main issue was that regular people just can't compete with them. When a studio has infinite money, they can basically force their way to the front page and stay there, which completely buries the smaller creators. They aren't trying to make a masterpiece, they're just trying to pump out updates as fast as possible to trick people into wasting Robux on crates, spins and random game passes. Anything they touched just felt boring and empty. Every single update was basically the same thing as the last one, just with a different coat of paint. All they did was cram the games with gambling and these stupid battle passes, which I absolutely hate. They just kept pushing those limited time items to make you feel like you're missing out. And it honestly felt like they were just targeting kids who didn't know any better. The community wasn't stupid though, everyone started noticing exactly how Big operated. They'd get their hands on a game, and suddenly, updates would start flying out every week, but they were all garbage compared to what was there before. The original feel of the game would just vanish, replaced by constant pop-ups for you to buy stuff. It was like they were just gutting every game they touched until there was nothing left but a shop. But the reason the community was so toxic about this goes way beyond the money. It was more about how people felt totally backstabbed. It's a joke when you spend most of your time grinding a game, only for the devs to dump it for a paycheck. Nobody wants to watch a game they actually like get handed over to a studio that just drains it dry, turns it into a pay-to-win mess, and then leaves it to die. It wasn't just Fisch, Big basically left a trail of ruined games behind them. Take Blade Ball for example. They added these pay-to-win abilities that completely trashed the game. It stopped being about how good you were and just became about who was willing to spend the most money. Then you have a Dusty Trip, which was a total disaster. They basically killed the vibe by adding those gambling spin wheels. Like, what's the point of a spin wheel in a survival game? They even started selling these supercars for like 3,000 Robux, which is insane. Honestly, the feeling of driving that old broken van was way better anyway. Buying a fast car just deletes the whole challenge of the game. It got really depressing because it felt like the era of the solo dev was just dead. You'd look at the front page and it was just a wall of big games or massive studios with huge budgets. If you were just a kid making games in your room, you were basically invisible. They had so much money and so many games that they just crowded everyone else out. It wasn't about who had the best idea anymore. It was just about who had the biggest bank account to stay on top. Then Big finally did something nobody expected. They actually sold a game back. Usually, once they buy something, it's gone for good. But they ended up selling Fisch right back to Woozy Nate. It was the first real sign that the studio was losing their grip, because they never let a game go unless something is seriously wrong behind the scenes. People started saying that Nate and the studio must have had a huge fight. Some also said that Big just got fed up and decided the game wasn't worth the drama anymore. It made everyone think the company was finally done with Roblox for good, and honestly, they might be correct because you don't just sell a game back unless you're basically ready to quit the whole site. The second Nate got the game back, he started fixing everything. He got rid of the 64x luck passes and those expensive bundles that made the game pay to win. He basically just pulled out all the greedy stuff they had added and promised to start making the game fun again. It didn't take long either. After only a month, he dropped a real update that gave players exactly what they had been asking for. It felt like a massive win for everyone on Roblox. Finally, a game as big as Fisch had actually escaped. It was like the game could finally breathe again, and players noticed the count blew up from that pathetic 10,000 all the way back to 100,000. People were still pretty bitter about what Big had put them through, but seeing the game blow up again just proved how much of a mess the company had actually made. It makes you wonder why they even walked away in the first place. The weirdest part is that once all the pay-to-win stuff was gone, Nate actually said the game was still making just as much money as before. Even without those cheap tactics, Fisch was still bringing in hundreds of thousands of dollars. It basically proved that the company was making the game worse for no reason, since they didn't even need those bundles to stay rich. Big isn't some charity. They don't just hand things back because they want to be nice. They're in it for the money, which is exactly why everyone was so pissed off. To them, the players were just dollar signs, and the studio got labeled as just another greedy company. It felt like the only reason they'd actually give up the game is if they were already failing, or if they were being forced to sell everything off because the whole company was falling apart. And just like that, on December 13th, 2025, Big just stopped existing. If you went to their site, you wouldn't even see their old games or their about page anymore. It was all just gone. They didn't even bother to leave a message or tell anyone they were shutting down. One day they were there, and the next, it was like the company never existed in the first place. The second people saw the site was blank, it was all over Discord. Every server linked to their games was flooded with screenshots of the dead pages. For most players, it was a total party. Everyone was just hoping it meant the Big studio was finally dead. Since the company stayed quiet, the whole community turned into a massive guessing game about what actually went wrong. A lot of people are convinced that Big just pulled a pump and dump. They made millions off those scummy tactics, and the moment they saw the numbers dipping not just in their own games, but across all of Roblox, they cashed in their chips and bailed. They got exactly what they came for, so they didn't see any point in sticking around to fix the mess they made. The players who were fed up with them were just glad to see them go. Pretty much everyone agreed that they got what was coming to them and that the whole platform is better off now. It makes sense too. With that company gone, it stopped them from drowning out better games. You can already see it happening. The front page is actually worth looking at now that their games aren't taking up all the space. Look at The Forge, it's a perfect example. It blew up completely on its own without any help from Big, and it's actually one of my favorite games right now. The whole thing was started by just one dev named Fire Attack. It managed to climb the ranks without a massive studio backing it, which just shows that solo creators can actually make it now that those big companies aren't gatekeeping the front page. Things have been weirdly quiet ever since they got rid of Fisch. You don't see them snatching up games anymore or turning everything into a pay-to-win mess. Honestly, the Do Big name is so hated at this point that they can't really show their faces anymore. It's just a shortcut for greedy and failed. That's probably why they're hiding. And another theory is that they could be scrubbing the brand from the internet so they can restart under a new name where nobody knows their history. It's a classic shady move. Start a few new companies, put some new names on the paperwork, and keep buying up games without the Do Big baggage holding them back. If nobody knows it's them, they don't have to deal with the hate. We're all just guessing for now, but the difference on Roblox is night and day. The front page actually has some life in it again, and the games at the top are miles ahead of the garbage we were seeing just a few months ago. Now that WoozyNate finally has Fisch back, things are actually looking a lot better for developers. But it still leaves people wondering about steal a brainrot and grow a garden. We don't really know who's behind them now. It's hard to tell if the original devs are actually back in control or if the games just got handed over to some other random company that wants to stay hidden. We're essentially in a waiting game because they've gone totally silent. If the studio is actually finished, the front page is going to look like a different world. We might finally get a break from all the slop and see the platform move back toward games that people actually put effort into. It could be the start of a massive shift where developers focus on making something they're proud of instead of just chasing a quick payout. But there's a massive opening here now. The whole business of buying up games just to milk them for cash makes way too much money to just stop. If they really are out of the picture, it's almost certain that a new group, maybe even more aggressive, will just slide into that spot. There's always going to be someone ready to chase that kind of easy profit. Even if Do Big never comes back, they basically left a guide on how to ruin a game for a quick buck. They showed that you can just buy a popular game, gut it with pay-to-win mechanics, and churn out lazy, copy-paste updates. That greedy way of doing things is part of Roblox now. Whether they're actually finished or just hiding is one thing, but the slop they normalized isn't going anywhere. So yeah, we'll see if these guys are actually done for good, or if we're just waiting for the next group to try the same thing. Anyways, peace out.